It's 8 o'clock. This is the UK Tonight. Coming up, devastating wildfires ripped through Los Angeles. We'll be hearing from one of the Brits caught up in the chaos as the state of emergency is declared and tens of thousands of people are evacuated. Also tonight, the Prime Minister and his opposite number clash over grooming gangs as the war of words over an inquiry continues and MPs vote on the issue in Parliament. We hear from one of the voices that matters most, a survivor at the heart of this UK-wide scandal, who says more than a decade on, she's still not being listened to. Plus, several NHS trusts declare critical incidents as winter pressure on the health service ramps up. Fresh warnings for snow and ice as severe weather causes chaos in the southwest of England tonight. We'll have the latest. And from the streets to the stage, I speak to the homeless piano player who became a viral hit and is now playing sold-out concerts across the country. All that to come and much more on the UK Tonight. Well, first tonight, we're going to start with that developing news coming out of the United States. Wildfires raging through neighbourhoods in LA. 2 people have died and tens of thousands have been evacuated. These pictures that have been coming in throughout the course of today give you an idea of just what fire crews there are still up against. More than 1,000 structures are known to have been destroyed, hundreds of them homes. 2 men trapped inside their home captured flames surrounding the property before they managed to make their escape. Here's what they recorded.
Just be okay. You're gonna be okay, all right? You're gonna be okay. So, where's the gas?
Outside.
Okay, the gas is off right now. No, don't open the window. Don't open. Don't open anything. Just stay over here.
Emergency services led by the LA Fire Department have been giving an update on this unfolding disaster. We can take a listen to some of what they had to say a little earlier.
We have over 1,000 personnel assigned, and the cause of the fire is unknown. However, it is under investigation. Lastly, the National Weather Service has predicted a continued red flag weather event with strong winds and low humidities, placing all residents of Los Angeles County in danger.
Well, thousands of people have been forced to evacuate the area, but the ferocity of these flames has made it difficult for many. Actor and writer Steve Guttenberg has been helping people leave danger zones and assist firefighters. He spoke to Sky News earlier.
I was just helping out, trying to get people in wheelchairs. There were people in wheelchairs trying to get out who didn't have time to put their footrests on. And we had to figure out how to pop a wheelie with these wheelchairs. There were little kids. There were mothers trying to find their kids. There were anxiety, panic attacks. It's terrible. And this wind won't let up, and the fires just won't let up.
Well, there does seem to be no let up at the moment. Those fires fuelled by strengthening winds. We can head to California live now and speak to Jonathan London, a resident there. Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us this evening at what is a really worrying time for you and your fellow residents of Los Angeles. Talk to us about where you are. You're in Marina del Rey.
That's right. Yeah, I'm on the border of Marina del Rey and Venice, right by the ocean. So we're a few miles away from where the line of fire is. So we can clearly see sort of how bad the fire is here, and kind of seeing the full effects of that as neighbors are getting ready to potentially move and have to evacuate. So yeah, it's a very interesting time. I've never seen it as bad as this. I've lived here for 12 years, and it's I think just seeing the kind of utter devastation. It's extremely apocalyptic here. It's like you're in a disaster movie. It's a very strange time indeed.
Yeah, some of the pictures that have been coming into us throughout the course of the day, as this, quite frankly, gets worse, have been, as you said, apocalyptic in nature, even views from the coast, from the beach, where people are in relative safety at the moment. Just the clouds of smoke covering the sky and blocking out the daylight as LA woke up to what was unfolding. As you said, LA used to this, perhaps not on this scale. You say you've never seen anything like it, but give us an idea of the warning and protection systems that are in place, because you get alerts on your phone. There's a tried and tested system designed to protect residents.
Yeah, that's right. And, I think this fire really spun out of control so quickly. Usually, these fires, they gradually take hold. But yesterday, we could all just see how sort of catastrophic this was getting. And this fire really turned into a monster so quickly with these extremely high winds. They span out of control to 0% containment. I believe it's still 0% containment. They still have no containment of this fire. So it's really, worst case scenario for hundreds of thousands of people. Some of these people are friends of mine. Some have been evacuated. There's an app that we all have. All of our neighbors have this app, and it shows you. It kind of has an orange color when you have to get ready to evacuate, and then red when you need to evacuate. So it is very, very helpful to see that. So we just have our eyes on this map the whole time, just to make sure that we're going to be okay and that the fire doesn't spread over to where we are.
Yeah, everyone on high alert and checking the app, no doubt, frequently. Do you know anyone that's been directly affected? I would imagine that you've been calling around a lot of your friends and colleagues to check that they're okay.
Yes, I have a lot of friends that live in Santa Monica and a couple that live in the Palisades who have been evacuated. Friends of mine who leave not knowing whether their homes are going to be there when they return. I've heard of two friends of mine who have unfortunately had their homes destroyed, one of which had been in their family for generations. So, just sort of seeing this affecting the people that you know and love is very strange. And knowing that this is taking place just a couple of miles away from where you live is, obviously kind of jarring.
Where are the people that are being displaced going? I know anecdotally, I've looked on Facebook, friends in LA have opened up their homes to people that have been affected. So, if you're lucky enough to have friends in a safe area, you can go to them. As I said, people opening up their homes to families they don't know to give them shelter. Have you got an idea from what's going on all these sort of community groups, where people are being sent to?
Yeah, I mean, the city has lots of resources. There's tons of evacuation centers. I think what the community here is really good at is gathering together. We're all on these different group chats. If anyone needs a place to stay, if anyone needs a pet that is displaced. So everyone's really sort of rallying around using social media to sort of collect information of what people need, where they are, offering to go and pick people up if they need, offering a place to stay. So, it's definitely the community really comes together and it's happened so quickly, but everyone's really rallied around quickly. So it's great to see.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It happened quickly. And like you said, California is used to these wildfires, but they haven't seen anything like this. You're far enough away at the moment that you're not currently seeing an evacuation order. But Jonathan, do you have a plan?
I really should. I think, for myself, with this app that we have and we're able to see as it gradually moves forward to us, there will be time for us to sort of figure out to collect a few belongings and to get ready. I think until it gets to a certain point close to us, then I think we're going to be okay. But I think just keeping your eye on the ball and making sure that you always are ready whenever that may happen.
Yeah, and just finally, Jonathan, we're looking at pictures there of the traffic trying to leave the area, the helicopters putting what water they can, because obviously authorities there have said preserve water. We have seen people trying to cover their houses with water desperately, as you would in that situation. But they're saying, the fire and emergency services need every drop of water they can, because at the moment, LA is so dry. And just talk to us about sort of the landscape and the terrain there, because that does fuel these wildfires. And you've had particularly strong winds there over the last couple of days.
100%. So, I think as far as rain is concerned, we haven't seen rain here in months. And, when you have these prolonged periods of time without rain, you have this brush that has been dry for years. All it takes is a small spark and a bit of wind and everything just kicks up and is just destroyed so quickly. I think it's going to be interesting to see post catastrophe, what could have been done better. Is there a problem with the water? Is there a problem with this brush? Should we be doing brush clearance quicker than we have been? I know that's a hot topic on people's minds, and I've seen people talk about it today, especially. So, you know, it's horrible to say that lessons will be learned, but, you know, we do need to do a better job, I think, of preparing ourselves so we're not, you know, scrambling around to based on a reaction. We should be, you know, proactive.
Well, Jonathan, look, stay safe. Really good to talk to you. No word yet on the cause of these fires, of course. Authorities have made that very clear. That, again, will come out in the fullness of time in the investigation into what is going on. But at the moment, you're right in the thick of it there in Los Angeles. That's Jonathan London in Marina del Rey, currently not affected, but on standby for an evacuation order. Good to have your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, we will, of course, keep an eye on developments out of California throughout the programme and throughout the course of the evening here on Sky News. Let's turn our attention to news here in the UK and the continuing row over grooming gangs. Within the last hour, MPs have voted against a new national inquiry into the scandal. It comes after the Prime Minister and his opposite number clashed during a heated Prime Minister's questions earlier today, when Sir Keir Starmer warned a further inquiry could delay action on tackling child sexual abuse. He also accused the Conservatives of jumping on the bandwagon after a week of extraordinary interventions by Elon Musk. Our political correspondent Tamara Cohen has the story.
Horrific child abuse scandals across the country now at the top of the political agenda as the party leaders clash about whether a national inquiry is needed. Keir Starmer insisted not at Prime Minister's questions.
This morning I met some of the victims and survivors of this scandal, and they were clear with me that they want action now, not the delay of a further inquiry. The J inquiry, the last national inquiry, was 7 years.
But Kemi Badenoch and the Conservatives tried to force a vote on one.
This issue of a delay is a weak excuse, and I would say to him that by refusing this inquiry, he is enabling those people who wish to smear all British Muslims based on the actions of a small minority. He is talking about distraction tactics. Let us have the truth. The Prime Minister cannot tell the House the full scale of the scandal.
With Labour's huge majority, it was overwhelmingly defeated.
The ayes to the right were 111, the noes to the left 364. So the noes have it, the noes have it.
Although ministers now say an inquiry may happen further down the track.
Nothing is off the table. Nothing is off the table. And if the victims come forward to me in this victims panel that I will make, and they say, actually, we think there needs to be a national inquiry into this or a linking up of that, I'm going to, you know, I'll listen to them.
The scandal of child grooming gangs is back in the spotlight here for reasons largely beyond the Prime Minister's control. But now the pressure is on. Those representing victims want to make sure this isn't just a political row, but an opportunity for real change.
A national inquiry would only really bring into the public eye things that those of us working in the sector already know. We already know that it's happening in lots of towns and cities. We already know the modus operandi of these gangs. My priority is future prevention of this type of thing. If a government wants to spend a load of money just telling us what we already really know, then fine.
An issue which has been in dark corners for too long now promises this government will enact recommendations. Time will tell if it makes a real difference. Tamara Cohen, Sky News, Westminster.
Well, that's the politics, but what about the people who are at the heart of this awful story? We heard there Safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips saying there that if the victims want one, there could still be a new national inquiry. One victim who supports a new inquiry is Toni Louise. Now 24, she says she was groomed and a victim of child sex abuse in Glasgow when she was just 12. I started by asking Toni Louise why she wants this new inquiry.
It's not spoken about enough, and there's a lot of women out there that can't speak out. It's been covered up for years about grooming gangs. It's a taboo subject. We're not allowed to speak about it. We don't, as obviously the UK, there's certain things that we don't speak about. The old saying, whatever happens behind closed doors So it's ridiculous. Something has to be done about it now.
Do you think that's why people aren't talking about it as much anymore?
Yeah.
I mean, they are this week because of an intervention by the world's richest man. Took everybody by surprise, but it's reignited the conversation, which I'm sure is welcome news to you.
Yeah,
it's getting the attention
that it's taken for him to speak out about it, for the public to be like in an uproar about it.
Why do you think that conversation stopped? Do you think it's because of the uncomfortable issues it raises?
100%.
Issues of race, child abuse, trafficking, grooming, older men with children?
Yeah. I feel like as Brits there's certain things that we're not allowed to speak about. Like you said, race and trafficking and paedophilia, like that's all like taboo subjects. I feel like to get people to listen, you have to traumatise them, because it's the only way that they're going to speak about it. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah,
like,
it does. It does.
You've got to traumatise people to make them listen and to open their eyes. Like, it's real. It happens every single day.
The conversation is happening once again, and to seize the moment to really make change for victims and survivors like yourself, and women who are still going through this, who are still living through this in the UK. A lot of people are saying, well, one side of the argument is saying, is another public inquiry the answer? Because for something on this scale, it could take another decade for an inquiry to be completed. And there's already been a national inquiry that was done by Professor Alexis Jay, came up with 20 recommendations. She also led a separate inquiry into the Rotherham grooming gang scandal. And there have been separate inquiries and reports in other areas of the UK. So we know what's happening. We know what the recommendations are. There has just been no action. Is that not what we should be focusing on, rather than spending another decade talking about it? That's the other side of the argument. Can you see that point?
Yeah, I can see that point. Yeah, I can. It just always comes back to something has to happen. Something's got to change. Like, it can't continue to go on like this. Like, obviously myself, being a survivor of it, it's taken me a decade to finally be able to speak out about it. So why are we being silenced? That comes into it. Like, we as victims and survivors are treated the way that these predators should be treated. We're treated worse than the victims are treated worse than what the criminal is.
Yeah. Toni Louise, you make a really good point there. Yeah, something's got to give. You make a really good point there, because the whole point of the first national public inquiry and the subsequent inquiries in various different areas in the UK, Telford, Rotherham, Derbyshire, was that this was not only to uncover what was going on and to stop it from happening again, but it was also to give victims a voice. And I just wonder if you feel that, apart from giving evidence to an inquiry, victims' voices have been lost in all of this, whether it be the silence when politicians aren't talking about it, so the news agenda doesn't cover it, whether it's social media, people not directly involved taking on your story and taking it around the world. Do you feel like your voice has been taken out of this whole discourse, particularly this week?
My voice has never been heard, ever, other than this week, when it's taken Elon Musk to speak up about it for people to want to listen. That to me is just disgusting, and it makes me really, really, really disappointed in the UK. Really disappointed that it's taken the richest man in the world to say something for people to start listening. Victims have never had a voice. It was to give victims a voice. Where has that been? Because I can't speak for England because I'm in Scotland, obviously. There's people in Scotland have never had a voice. The victims of this, of domestic violence, of sex trafficking, of child sexual abuse, we've never, ever had a voice.
Toni Louise, one of the questions this week has been, why now? Why is all of this coming up now? I suppose you don't care about that question, do you? Whether it's come from
Not really.
Elon Musk, whether it's come from tweets from the far right, or just social media getting involved and sharing old stories, old court transcripts. They may be out-of-date court transcripts for court cases that have already happened, but they speak to the issue. They shine a light on what was going on and what, let's face it, in the UK probably still is going on. So I guess you don't care how this started. You care where it goes next. What do you want to happen as a result of what has, let's face it, blown up this week?
Ideally. Now, ideally, I would like for there to never be another victim of these crimes. That's never going to happen. I know that. You know that. Everybody else knows that. But what I want to happen next is for there to be an inquiry for some sort of justice for victims, like someone to open their mouth and say, this is wrong and this needs to change. I can't change it. You can't change it. It's now down to the government to look into it, change it, make laws. Like,
do you feel like that started? Because on Monday, the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, came out and talked about some of those recommendations that have been out there since the last government was in power. And she said one of the main recommendations was for people who work with children to face criminal sanctions if they fail to report sexual abuse claims. She said that this would feature in the upcoming crime and policing bill. She also said the government would legislate to make grooming an aggravating factor in the sentencing of child sexual offences. That's just a couple of the recommendations. So to you, it feels like the wheels are starting to turn?
It does give me a little bit of hope, but I've been failed at every stop. Social work, school, police, everybody. So as much as I want it to give me hope, I'll believe it when I see it. I'll believe it like I can't put my whole faith into the government because of everybody that's already failed me before that we're supposed to help. So, but I do hope that this is the start and that the wheels are turning and that something is going to change.
Oh, a big thank you to Toni Louise for speaking to us tonight. Our home editor, Jason Farrell, is here with me. And you know Toni Louise, you've spoken to an incredibly impressive young woman, given what she's gone through, because you were telling me hers is one of the most shocking cases you've heard throughout your entire investigations into grooming gangs.
Yeah, I mean, I met Toni Louise 2 years ago in Glasgow, and some of the things that she said are pretty much unrepeatable as to what she saw, what happened to her, but also what she witnessed happening to very, very young children. And, you know, hearing her there, just reminding, you know, I think that when we interviewed her, it was like the first time that someone actually listened to her story and she felt believed. And I think that's why a lot of the victims want to have a public inquiry, just to be listened to. They felt that they haven't, and that really powerful point she made, she didn't really want Elon Musk to be the person to bring this up. And she's quite disgusted that that's what it's taken for this to be discussed in the way that it is now being discussed.
And how frustrating for victims and survivors like Toni Louise to finally be heard, only for attention to be diverted elsewhere. And that has happened since this whole scandal was uncovered. It's getting attention now. As Toni Louise said, she's disgusted that it's taken Elon Musk to refocus people's attention, politicians' attention on it. But the irony is, when the first national inquiry was published, attention was diverted elsewhere, and you were there, you watched it unfold in real time.
Well, it was an 8-year review. It was ordered by Theresa May 2014, and on the day it was published in October 2022, the 20th of October, you remember the date, it was also the day that Liz Truss resigned. And I was sitting there with Alexis J, where you're sat now, about to interview her, and we were watching our phones. And she said, please, I'm hoping it wasn't going to happen. When it did, I said, we'll try and get this on Sky News tonight, but I really can't promise. You know, a 6-week administration had completely kind of clouded over what happened. I think also, it wasn't just that we did get it onto Sky News that night. Many people didn't, but it was also the kind of disruption that came after that, different administration again, Theresa May, of course, had been Prime Minister. I think if she'd been in power, she'd have been really focused on it. Then we had an election. Some of the things that had been recommended were in the criminal justice bill that then didn't go through. So that's really the reason why the Alexis J report, I think, hasn't been properly looked at. And now it is. I mean, now some of these things are going to be put in place. So that's, that's the counter argument to having the national review, is just to get on and do what's been suggested in Alexis J's report.
OK, all right, Jason, that's all we've got time for, but we'll speak again on this because it is running and running. The attention, it's getting the attention it deserves, as Toni Louise has said, and we will continue that. So thank you. Just Jason Farrell there, our home editor, talking about the grooming gangs scandal. This has come here on the programme. A wave of critical incidents declared at hospitals right across the country as the National Health Service grapples with soaring flu cases. Also coming up, fresh warnings for heavy snow for the south of England. Will be live with the latest. And from the streets to the stage, we'll speak to the pianist who went from being homeless to playing sold-out shows.
I'm David Blevins, and I'm Sky's senior Ireland correspondent. It takes 60 minutes to cross the Irish Sea. It took the British monarchy a century. I've spent 30 years reporting the journey from conflict to peace.
The political parties of Northern Ireland have reached agreement.
If there's anyone who might know how to fix Northern Ireland's devolved government, it's the American architect.
Changes in circumstance require changes in approach.
The end of the political stalemate, the start of a new chapter for Northern Ireland.
I confirm that I am willing to take up the office of First Minister. My election to the post of First Minister demonstrates the change that's happening on this island.
Catholics and Protestants on different sides, now facing the same threat.
If we both contract COVID-19 and end up in hospital, religion's nothing.
People here are adept at finding hope amid adversity. That's the spirit of a place that punches way above its weight. We help you understand the world with us. A toxic blue-green algae now poisoning Lough Neagh. It's breaking your heart what has happened here.
It is.
This is a vital resource, a national treasure, now fighting for its very life. They are effectively surrounded by Northern Ireland, and that makes this the most unlikely of international frontiers.
If there's a hard border, I think it'll cripple the country.
Winter is coming. Welcome to Winterfell. It's an iconic location in this globally acclaimed drama. Ophelia was the most powerful hurricane this far east in the Atlantic on record. Sky News, the full story first.
I'm James Matthews, and I'm Sky's US correspondent, based here in Washington, D.C. Donald Trump, it would appear, is about to learn his fate. There's no doubting the strength of this hurricane as it roars through. Sky News, get the full story first. Do you fear a fourth indictment?
He's from Sky News. He's from Sky News. He's entitled to ask me questions.
Surging cases of winter illnesses are sparking critical incidents at hospitals right across the country, with NHS bosses warning there's no sign that the pressure is going to let up. Patients at one hospital in Liverpool have been left waiting for more than 2 days in A&E, while many trusts are urging patients to attend alone. Our health correspondent Laura Bundock has more.
A day ago, they declared a critical incident here at Basingstoke Hospital. The response? A rapid repurposing of rooms to free up beds. This physio ward now a waiting area for patients ready for discharge.
We run generally as about 400 beds on each site. They are all full. I've obviously got people coming in and out of them every day. We've had to turn most of our surgical capacity now over to medical capacity to be able to support those patients, and we have opened extra areas.
Susan Hilliard is grateful she's going home after a stressful stay.
It was quite upsetting because there were just so many people who were ill.
It did cross my mind, were people there because of COVID or flu? And I did wonder if it was flu, should they just be at home and recover at home?
Basingstoke is one of a dozen hospitals declaring a critical incident this week, all under pressure and overwhelmed with demand outstripping capacity, including the Royal Liverpool, where rising flu cases are to blame.
A nurse just came out and announced the situation today was that there were approximately 220 people waiting for different treatments, but that, it's not all going to one consultant or whatever, and that they've got a lot of staff off sick, so just bear with us.
This winter crisis was predictable, reflecting a wider problem. Hospitals are struggling with services permanently under strain.
When you've got a fragile system, anything that adds to the load could tip it over the edge, and so that's why it's been so challenging. It's worth remembering that flu levels are 246% higher than they were last year and at the same level as the year before.
Basingstoke hopes the critical incident will be lifted by the weekend, but others warn the worst is still to come, with winter viruses yet to peak. Laura Bundock, Sky News.
Let's get reaction now from Matthew Taylor, the Chief Executive of the NHS Confederation, that warned that this was on the way, and here it is. What's your reaction to what's unfolding?
It's a very difficult time for the NHS. Things are always tough at this time of year. We have fewer beds than similar health systems, which means that at a time when demand is very high, then we come under a huge pressure. I spoke to a leader today, for example, who's got over 100, in fact, getting near to 150 patients, medical patients, who are additional to the patients that they would want to normally have. So there's a number of them who are in beds in the corridor, in the emergency department. There's a group of them who are in surgical beds that would normally be safe for people having elective procedures. And there's a group of them who are in wards or bays that are normally designed for, say, 5 people, but they've got 6 beds in that bay. So, that's not untypical of the kinds of pressures that the health service is under at this time. And, we know what fundamentally drives it is a combination of the main issue, which is the people arriving at the front door of the hospital with a number of different infections at this time of year, but also the challenge of getting people to leave out of hospital who are ready to leave. And there can sometimes be challenges around having the staff to be able to process those people to leave, but also having community capacity for those people to move into.
You've highlighted quite a few of the issues there. Is one of them also the fact that winter illnesses are actually on the rise this season? Is that unusual, particularly flu? I know there's been a concerted effort. I've seen it, the campaign to get those who are vulnerable, the young and the elderly vaccinated. Is flu particularly bad this year, and why?
Flu is bad this year, although it's not actually as bad as it was 2 years ago when we were coming out of COVID. But it's the combination of flu. Again, I spoke to another leader yesterday. Their issue had really been norovirus more than flu, and particularly there the issue around kind of infection control, because you don't want an infection like that running right in a hospital. And of course, there are issues here also about staff illness. There's still COVID around, there's respiratory illnesses. But the other thing that I'm hearing from a whole number of leaders is about what we call acuity, which is how sick people are. Generally, flu, norovirus, these things are very unpleasant, but most of us can sit it out. We can take painkillers or whatever. We can stay in bed, take a few days off work. Overwhelmingly, the people who end up in hospital are people who have got other illnesses, long-term conditions, or people who are very socially isolated, so they have absolutely no support at all when they're sick. So what I'm hearing from a number of different hospitals is that it's partly the numbers, but also how sick those people are.
Yeah, and they're the people who need help to get out of hospital because they get stuck, don't they? They get stuck in beds because they've got no support in the community. There's no social care for them, or there's, you know, scarce resources for them to go home, so they end up stuck in hospital. And that's not going to ease up anytime soon, is it? It's not going to ease up this winter period, maybe not the next, maybe not the one after that, because it's at the heart of this, the problem with social care and the lack of attention that's, you know, being given to it at the moment by the government.
So the issue of hospital discharge is a complex one. It's a number of factors. It's partly to do with the capacity of the hospital. So, you know, I talked earlier, didn't I, about a hospital with 150 or so medical patients beyond what their normal capacity would be. The clinicians working with those patients are clinicians who are not available to undertake the kind of assessments and processes to get people to be able to leave the hospital. Yes, there are gaps in social care. Sometimes there's gaps in the NHS's own provision in community services or in terms of the capacity of virtual care at home. So it's a complex problem. But of course, you're right about social care. And you know, the government has announced some small changes at the same time as it also announced the commission. But we will be hoping, I think, along with local government organisations, that whilst this commission is taking place, it's still possible to make some improvements to invest further in social care, because those gaps in social care, yes, they're a problem in terms of the kind of back door of the hospital, but social care also plays a vital role in prevention. You know, part of the reason why some people arrive at the front door of the hospital is because they are isolated. If we had better social care, they might have the support to enable them to cope at home.
Matthew Taylor, always good to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming on to the programme to react to the critical incidents happening up and down the UK when it comes to the NHS. That's Matthew Taylor there, Chief Executive of the NHS Confederation. Thank you. Still to come on the UK tonight, fresh snow alerts with warnings of travel problems and potential power cuts in the south of England. We'll have the latest for you. 14-year-old boy who was stabbed to death on a bus in south-east London has been named today as Kellyan Bokassa. The teenager died at the scene yesterday in Woolwich. Police are continuing to search for his attacker. Sky's Adele Robinson has this report.
An aspiring drill rapper. But just 2 weeks after posting this video, Kellyan Bokassa was murdered, 14 years old, stabbed to death on a bus. It happened in the middle of the day, before 2:30 p.m. on Tuesday, on a double-decker bus in Woolwich. Kellyan died shortly after medics and the air ambulance arrived. Roy filmed Kellyan's latest video. He said the teenager was supposed to do another with him this month.
He was just like a cool kid, do you know what I mean? Just like any other kid I met. He seemed a bit more, do you know what I mean, wiser for his age. And then, yeah, I was just speaking to him about his music career. He said he just started, he wanted to carry on doing music. And the worst thing as well, he was just telling me about his friend that passed away not long ago.
You had plans as well?
Yeah, so after the video came out, it was doing well, got about 4,000 views, which is good for an independent person, no promotion or nothing. So we thought, yeah, this is going somewhere, let's go again.
Mark works to tackle youth knife crime in London. He says Kellyan paid a floral tribute just weeks ago to another teenager stabbed to death in September.
If you strip away the clothing that he's wearing, that seems to be, which is a trend, and you strip away the grime videos or whatever, you see a child behind that, and you see the type of person that bought the flowers in tribute of a guy that passed away in September. You don't see a gang member that's been, tagged, or social media says that he's a ruthless guy. You see the art of somebody that wanted to give flowers to somebody.
While Kellyan's family believe he was groomed by gangs and the police hunt his killer, the reality is this 14-year-old boy won't be the last child victim of London's knife crime. Adele Robinson, Sky News.
There are warnings. Heavy snow could cause major travel disruption and leave rural communities in the southwest completely cut off. Temperatures are expected to fall as low as -16 degrees Celsius in parts of the country this week. Well, an amber warning is in place until 9 o'clock tonight, covering parts of Devon, Somerset, Cornwall and Dorset. There's also a yellow warning for snow covering southern counties until midnight on Wednesday. These pictures are from Sussex, where there's already severe travel disruption, with some roads being completely blocked. The Met Office is also warning of potential power cuts. Let's speak now to Sky's Molly Malone. Molly, talk to us about where you are and what's happening.
So here in Hove, we've seen, haven't we, wintry weather conditions, particularly this evening, sort of making difficult journeys for travellers, for commuters, and it seems those weather conditions are only tightening their grip this evening. Where I am, just to give you a sense, behind me, we've seen a stretch of cars. Speaking to them, they say they've pretty much been here for the last at least half an hour, 40 minutes or so. The snow settling at times. It was much more difficult during that commuter hour earlier, but even now, looking down, the snow around me is settling on the ground, even amongst the rain. Now, we've got snowy amber alerts lasting through until 9 o'clock, so for the next half an hour or so, but it seems the situation is still very much a live one. We saw an abandoned bus just now leaving abandoned there because they'd run out of working hours. They had to leave it because the queues were too bad heading down this road, and we've just heard that there are extended ice warnings of ice heading into tomorrow as well. Forecasters are predicting somewhere in the region of -16 in parts of the country. So while it's snow here, elsewhere it'll be really, really cold. And it's not just disruption, which we've seen over the course of the last couple of days with really dangerous conditions for many people, but of course with that comes the cold freeze and that UK health alert for really cold conditions. Some of what was snow turning to slush, but that will no doubt turn to ice as it really gets chillier overnight, and that's what authorities are fearful of for vulnerable people, really worrying that actually freezing weather conditions combined with disruption for commuters make for some really quite treacherous and difficult conditions.
Molly Malone in Hove, thank you. Still to come on the programme, from rough sleeping to sold-out shows, we'll speak to the Pianist, raising thousands for charity after he went viral on social media. Plus, news of a new man in charge at West Ham following the sacking of their manager this morning.
Big stories don't always come from big cities. I'm Lisa Dowd and I'm Sky's Midlands correspondent.
You are not getting in this elevator, okay?
The judge made it very clear that she could see no justifiable reason why Sakulas wasn't here facing British justice.
I promised I would get him justice.
Free, wherever you get your news. This is what they're up against. The wind is the really big problem. It is back-breaking work and the smoke is thick. It's been working well. Water levels are dropping, but no one knows what impact further rain will have. What would you do if this place wasn't open? This is the exact spot in Nottingham where their 19-year-old son, Barnaby Webber, lost his life.
I just think it's so cruel and so harsh.
It's really scary. We're terrified.
In this community, I'm told that everybody knows someone affected by COVID.
Hopefully this will be the last wave.
Sky News gets the full story first. Change seems tantalisingly close in this corner of the UK. Wales was the first to introduce the plastic bag charge. It's legal to let go. Set the speed and take the hands off. It's almost driverless, but not quite. Hans is a highly trained police dog. The force is incredible. It's really frightening, actually. This is my patch, my specialism. It's also my home.
Two clubs separated by a 3.5-mile stretch of urban North London. The North London derby occupies centre stage. And that's a beautiful finish. The circle, that's just stunning.
The North London derby, only on Peacock.
Hello, welcome back. You're watching the UK Tonight. On the way, the homeless man who went from the streets to the stage thanks to his amazing piano playing. He's joining us in the studio shortly. But first, it's time for a look at the sports news. Teddy's standing by.
Staying connected is vital for business. Sky Business sponsors this report.
I'm striving to find out how our Games Academy system works. I've heard from the very best managers.
20 years ago, if you had talent, you could be at the top, but now it's not enough.
I've heard from the very best players.
You get your first contract when you're 8, 9, year on year you're fighting for a contract.
I've heard from those who've had their dreams shattered.
I'm so out of love with it, I don't want to be here.
Coming up in this episode, I'll find out exactly how the system works.
The two biggest periods of success in Manchester United's history have been driven by young academy players.
The way we do things may be slightly different, predominantly because we've been doing it longer than anyone else. Our youth program's 90 years old, and we're trying to build a program that sees the boys reach their full potential. Ultimately, you know, the utopia is we want to support players to go and play in our first team, and we've been brilliant at that over the years.
The relationship that the academy have with the first team, with the manager, with the director of football, chief executive, how close is that, Nick?
Youth development is the centre of this football club because of Matt Busby, because of Sir Alex, because of Munich, because of the Champions Leagues that we won. The youth sat at the heart of it. It's a way of life.
The two biggest periods of success in Manchester United's history have been driven by young academy players. It's everywhere you walk when you come into the club. Yeah, that's the biggest thing I always had from the manager was that he believed in me.
Yeah.
So he helped you, he guided you, you know, he let you know in certain terms when he needed to, that when you weren't at your level or when you weren't doing what you wanted to do, but always felt that the manager believed in me, and as a young player, that's all you could wish for.
The way we've always worked has been to consider developing the young person as well as the player. I think your best chance of reaching your full potential as a footballer is if you're a really good kid with some kind of well-rounded quality.
Sky Business sponsors this report.
A very special guest coming up, but first let's take a quick look at the weather. It is cold out there tonight, a northerly flow keeping it cold all week. Snow and extensive overnight frost, but it will turn milder for the weekend. The Met Office have an amber warning for snow over the high ground of southwest England. That expires at 9 o'clock tonight, so in about 10 minutes' time. Yellow warnings for snow and ice cover many other southern and western parts tonight. Southern England, wet this evening, outbreaks of rain, sleet and mainly hill snow with some disruption there possible. Especially over southwestern hills. Elsewhere, most places looking fine, but there will be some wintry showers near exposed, mainly northern coasts. Central parts will see fog thickening up as well. Rain, sleet and snow in the south will mostly clear overnight, perhaps lingering in the far southeast, but wintry showers will continue around northern and increasingly western coasts. An extensive frost, severe in places, will bring some icy stretches and some dense freezing fog over central parts. Now, you may have seen my next guest after he went viral on social media, playing Bohemian Rhapsody on the piano at a church in Penzance. Rhys Wynne-Jones, who was rough sleeping at the time, walked into the Nightchuch project looking for help. But he left people stunned when he started to play the piano. Rhys has since raised thousands of pounds for charity by holding a series of concerts across Cornwall. Let's have a little listen. I am resisting the urge to sing. Everyone in my ear is singing. Rhys, I won't subject you to that. You don't need that accompanying your beautiful piano playing. Really lovely to meet you. Thank you for coming in to see us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, talk to me about the day that you walked into the project.
It was at night time. It was a Saturday night. I was sleeping rough at the time. I had nowhere to go. My mental health was really bad. And I just didn't want to be near anybody at all. And the homeless community that I was sharing the streets with were concerned about me. So they said, come to Nightchuch Penzance. They got free ham and cheese toasties and you need to warm up because it's going to be a cold night tonight. So I went reluctantly. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't want to say anything to anyone. They gave me a cup of tea and I warmed up, and then the leader of the Nightchuch came across and said, is there anything else we can do for you? And I saw how big the church was, and I thought, I wonder if there's a piano, because piano has helped me so much with all the dark moments in my life, like from when I got bullied at school, from when I suffered a very difficult home life. And but I never expected the piano to do this to me.
Well, let's talk about that moment. So there was a piano in the church and presumably other people are there as well, you know, the homeless community, getting warm, having something to eat, the volunteers. And you sat down at the piano. And what did you play? What was the reaction?
I played a little bit of classical at first because I was very cold at the time and doing the fast stuff.
Just to warm your fingers up, yeah.
And I played Bohemian Rhapsody as well. Now, whilst I was playing Bohemian Rhapsody, I was recorded. And I didn't know I was being recorded at the time. And it was only a couple of days after when people were recognising me on the street, saying, you're that piano player, you're really good. And I was thinking to myself...
How do they know?
Yeah. And I went back to the church and they said, you got 12,000 views overnight, that's astounding. And then there was all these comments saying that I should do a concert. And it took me a while to get round to that idea, but...
Well, because that's quite a big step, isn't it?
It
From
is.
playing the piano just to sort of get your head straight and to take you to your safe place, You're now on stage performing to hundreds of people across Cornwall, and there's interest right across the UK for you to go and perform elsewhere. What was that like, that level of interest? Because you're doing it to raise money for charities, for homeless charities, to help people that had been affected like you.
When you're homeless, it's not what society thinks it is. It's a situation you don't know about until you're in it. I mean, it's a common misconception that people think you've lost everything when you're homeless, but the reality is far more horrific than that. You're continuously losing everything. I mean, first, yeah, you lose your house, your job, but then your relationships start to deteriorate, and you start losing possessions, and then you've got people all around you that are suffering with this as well. And I've seen a lot of horrible things, and when I said, OK, I'll do the concert, Nightchuch said you can take the money for yourself to help you get back on your feet. But after seeing all that, how can I?
Yeah. Well, you've raised thousands of pounds so far for other people in your situation. You know, like you said, not raising it for yourself. How are you doing now?
A few people have said to me that I'm living the dream. Well, it is a bit of a dream, like going from the streets to...
Totally surreal, I would imagine.
It is. It's... when people say living the dream, they imagine it to be a beautiful, accomplished feeling. But in reality, I'm just in a constant state of disbelief, and I'm emotionally overwhelmed 24/7.
Well, listen, it's helping you, and I know that you are living, you're in supported living at the moment, and that's helping you get back on your feet. This is helping. Rhys, you're going to play for us. I know one of your heroes is Matthew Bellamy from Muse. He's a local lad, Devon. I thought you might play a Muse song, but you've got one of your own songs to play us out tonight. So would you like to go over to the piano and you can play us out tonight on the UK Tonight? What a treat, what a treat. Off you go, Rhys. Thank you very much. Well, Rhys is going to play us out tonight. We will be back at 8 o'clock tomorrow night. The World with Yalda Hakeem follows us. Rhys, take it away.